Shalom, Kalalal, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. And I just want to give all praises, glory, and honor due unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushai Bahashem Rakah HaKodash. This is the VOJ, the voice of Jacob, coming back at you with another video / lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. And Lord willing, this will be edifying and thought-provoking in the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. And my name is Brother Gabar Ya'Allah. Also, double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone of GMS that I do learn this truth from. To you I say shalom, and also shalom unto the hopeful elect. And that's who the Lord is coming back for, the elect that comes out of the nation of Israel. You are chosen. That's why the scripture says, many are called, but few are chosen. Anyways, I was just watching this clip here. It's about 7 minutes and change. And it says Andrew Tate talking about alcohol. You know, I like Andrew Tate for the most part. And, you know, he just says what's on his mind. And I like listening to him, but only for so long, though. I can't listen to him for a very long time, but sometimes I'll tune into what he has to say. But what he says right here reminds me of, you know, King Solomon, you know, what he went through. And pretty much he's getting the exact same taste that King Solomon got when he was pursuing fun, luxury, and excess. And fun, luxury, and excess only brings you temporary pleasure, but it's not long-lasting fulfillment, right? So he came to that conclusion. He came to that epiphany. And in this clip here, he says, you know, I quit drinking alcohol not for religious reasons, but just to see if I can have fun without having fun, pretty much. Because he goes into the rant of, you know, I've had so much fun to the point I've done everything already. So what if I didn't have fun? Could I have fun not having fun? And at the very end, he said pretty much, you know, I didn't really care about having fun anymore, because all I really wanted to do was just spend time with my family and enjoy the simple things in life. And this guy, he's been all over the world. He spent lots of money. He has a lot of women. He has private jets, cooks, drivers, luxury cars. Hell, he's a world champion, right? He even has that title. So he's done it all. He's in shape, and also he's an Israelite. So he's got it going. But the only thing he doesn't have going is that he doesn't have the Lord in his life. So, you know, he did it all. So it kind of reminds me of King Solomon here, man. And I got some precepts to go into. I got some precepts. But before I say that, fun, luxury, and excess can only bring you temporary pleasure. And also, it's not long-lasting fulfillment. You know, wisdom and pleasure without purpose pretty much ends in emptiness. And true meaning is only found in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, righteousness, and humility. It's not in material or sensual pursuits, man. And we have to understand that. That's why the precept or the scripture says, before honor cometh humility. I'm going to pull that up. So this is Proverbs chapter 15, verse 33. The fear of Yahweh is the instruction of wisdom. That's right. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, so that makes sense. So if you fear the Lord, you are very wise. Okay? So you know the Lord if you fear him. And before honor is humility. That's right. So before honor, you gotta be humbled. You gotta go through humility. You gotta take the low. You gotta lose. You gotta catch L's. You gotta get bumped, scraped, and bruised. You got to go through those things spiritually and even physically before you get to the honor, which our honor is going to come in the kingdom, in the fulfillment of the second covenant especially, but in the kingdom, you know, we're going to get the rewards. And brothers, you are going to be rewarded for what you're doing right now, you know, serving Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai and loving him and staying strong in his name, right? But yes, before honor is humility. So yeah, true meaning is found only in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, righteousness and humility, not in material or sensual pursuits. And King Solomon figured that out, and this guy, he's now beginning to figure it out, because he's still worldly. He's in the world. He isn't really right. But he's still figuring it out, because he came at the very end and said that, I just want to spend time with my family, play a simple game of Uno with my brother, and enjoy life peacefully, and just stay home. I don't want to jet set. And, that's the spirit of an Israelite too. Because, the scripture says Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. So this guy's an Israelite when he's saying things like that too, in the spirit. Now, let me get some precepts going into Solomon. The first one I want to start off at is 1 Kings 10 and 14. And I think I'm going to read all the way down to the 23rd verse. And this describes King Solomon's incredible wealth, man. He was extremely rich. Very wealthy, rich, powerful, and extremely wise, man. And yes, he did go off. And, he was in the spirit of man. And you know why I say that? I say that because of the riches that he had. Case in point, and I'm not saying he was a wicked king, all right? But he did go off later on. He was righteous, he was great. But, he was kind of vain too, especially what he was pursuing. Now, I'm going to show you why here, because this is spiritual, the amount of money he had, the 6 talents in gold. And when you calculate that, that's 666 talents of gold every year that he received. So that's 25 tons of gold annually. But, as it says 603 score 6. Hey man, 666, that's the number of man. When you go into Revelation. So, when he came on the scene, he was very carnal. He pursued carnal things, right? But he still loved the Lord, and then he went off at the end. All right, so, and by the way, that's Yahushua in the spirit, and that's why when Yahushua came on the scene, he didn't get any glory. Especially when you go into Isaiah, the 53rd chapter. He was hated by everybody. He was acquainted with sorrows and grief. So he paid for what he did when he came back as Yahushua in the spirit. All right, so this is 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 14. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 603 score and 6 talents of gold. Okay, and like I said, I went ahead. That's 666 talents of gold every year. So in its weight, it's about 25 tons of gold. So that's what he was getting yearly. Okay, pure gold, man. So 666, number of a man. So you can tell how he was gonna go off later on too. All right, anyways, move on. Let's move on. So it says, verse 15, beside that, he had the merchantmen and of the traffic of the spice merchants and of all the kings of Arabia and of the governors of the country. So you had spices and all that stuff, merchants and, all that stuff. And it says here, and King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold, 600 shekels of gold went to one target. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with the best gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind him. And there were stays on either side on the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the stays. His throne was overlaid with pure gold and with 12 lions on the steps. So that's very, very luxurious and opulent, man. That's amazing. And that's how he was living back then. And you know what? In the kingdom, we're going to live like this, but we're going to be perfect. Think about that. We're going to be like King Solomon and beyond in the kingdom. We're going to be living like this every day. But, the great thing about it is that we're going to be perfect. We're going to have the laws written in our inward parts, and we're never going to go off. Right? So before we get to this honorable state, we have to be humbled, and we're being humbled on this side right now. Brothers, right now, you may not have a lot. You may have little. You may not have a woman. You may not have a big house. You may not even have a car. All you may have is just a computer, a laptop, and a phone, and then a job, a 9 to 5. But in the kingdom, that's all going to change. You're going to get everything that your heart desires. Anyways, man, let me move on. It says here, verse 20, and 12 lions stood there on one side, and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. So this was exclusive, only to him, exclusive shit. So he only had it this way. No other king, queen, monarch had this. Only King Solomon. He had the best of the best. Verse 21. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. And silver is a precious metal too. Right? It's right under gold. That's still valuable. But he had the best of the best. He had pure gold, man. That's amazing. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon, for the king had a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. So he had it all. He did everything. Anything you can think of, Solomon did it. And he had men under him. He had subjects. Okay, and it said he exceeded all the kings of the earth. So he was better than them. Kind of reminds me of Adam, in the very beginning, how the nations were jealous of him, and his bows, roughly paraphrasing. Which shows you, Solomon, Yahushai, they are Adam, in the spirit. And Adam is Yahushai, man. Amazing, man. See how it is? Everything plays out in the reincarnation. Verse 25. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold and garments and armor and spices, horses and mules, and rate year by year. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the cities for chariots and with the king at Jerusalem. So yeah, he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses. So that's cars, man. Luxury cars. And that's what this guy is doing, because that's why they have a term called horsepower. That's a unit of measure that they use to calculate the speed of the car, or how powerful that car is. So that falls into the category of luxury cars, man. Okay, so he had luxury cars, man, beautiful ones, probably like stallions, staves, and I can't remember all the names, but he had stallions, top horses, top breeds, anything that you can think of. Golden chariots, that because that's what you connect the horse to a chariot. That's a lot, man. So he was living fat. Right? He was living fat, and that's what this guy is doing. I'm not saying he's as big as Solomon, but he's on that level in terms of what he has materially. Private jets, luxury cars. He lives like a GTA character. If you ever played GTA 5, the video game, that's how you can live in the video game. He actually lives like that. Luxury cars, big homes, properties, businesses. He can go to the gym, get in shape. He can do whatever he wants. It's GTA, bro. Right? So, all right. So we're going to continue on. I'm going to read till... actually, that's all I want from here. And also, when you go into 1 Kings, the 7th chapter, I'm not going to get it. It goes into his palace. His palace and temple were architectural wonders, man. I believe it took 13 years to build his own palace and 7 years for the temple. Right? I think that's in 1 Kings, the 7th chapter. Right? So even when it came to architecture and him building up things, like Donald Trump, how he's a builder, right? He's a multi-billion-dollar construction tycoon. Think of Solomon. Solomon was just like that, building up things, man, left and right. It was opulent, right? So now we're gonna go into Solomon's pursuits of pleasure and fun. And King Solomon sought to explore every kind of joy life could offer. So let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and we're gonna start at 1, and we're gonna read all the way down to the 10th verse. It says, "I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. Yeah, man. So, he tried wine, feasting, wining and dining, feasting, building grand projects. He was into music and entertainment. He had entertainers and things of that nature, musicians. Also, he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, man. I believe that's found in 1 Kings 11. Yeah, I think that's the 11th chapter, if you go there. And yeah, man, so you gotta, if you have women, man, you have to indulge in folly. And you have to spend a lot of time with them. And one thing about women, man, you can't, you can't make them bored, man. You got to keep them busy. You got to keep them excited. You got to keep them happy. You got to always do something fun with women. What you don't want when being with a woman is a bored woman. She can't be bored around you, and she can't think that you're boring. So King Solomon was doing things, man. That's serious, man, because that's 1,000 wives, pretty much. That's a lot of time and effort. You gotta partake in folly, man. That's serious. King Solomon had it all. He also had lavish parties and constant enjoyment. Excuse me. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. So yeah, he literally had everything a person could desire: power, wisdom, beauty, luxury, and pleasure, man. And yeah, man, he's had lavish parties and constant enjoyment. That's all. So verse 4, it says, I made me great works. I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasures of kings. And of the provinces I got me men singers and women singers. So entertainers, man. I remember back in the day when Gaddafi was alive, you know what he did? He paid, I think this was back in maybe 2000 and, I don't know if it was 2008 or 2009. I think it was 2009. I can't remember, but I remember Gaddafi for his, I think it was for his son's birthday. He paid Beyonce $1 million to perform on stage in was it Libya? Yeah, he paid her $1 million. So he was paying these singers and women singers to perform in front of him live. So hey, our king was about entertainment and lavishness, man. That wasn't a big thing for him to do. So if Gaddafi can do it, think about King Solomon and what he's able to do with these entertainers, man. So, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. There you go. And his wisdom didn't depart. You know why? Because he feared the Lord, which shows he was righteous. If you can increase so much and then remain wise, it shows that he feared the Lord, right? But it's not until later on he got kind of silly, but he was a man of the Lord. He loved Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. But on this go around, he was set up as an example to show you that fun, luxury, and being in the pursuit of pleasures is only temporary. What you should be really pursuing is Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, and this showed you this on the highest level. Okay. All right, so I'm going to read verse 10. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my portion of all my labor. And that's what he goes into too. He's like, you know what? I deserve to drink, party, and do all of that because I'm consistent in what I do. I was able to stay in shape, achieve great things. Right, achieve greater things than the average man could. I was very disciplined. I always was in shape. I was never out of shape. I was still able to perform on a very high level. So I deserve to do all these things, and that's what he's doing right now. So I just see this guy going through the same things that King Solomon went through, but just on a lower level, right? But yeah, all right. So let me move on. We're gonna go into King Solomon's realization of vanity. After indulging in all forms of wealth, pleasure, and fun, Solomon pretty much concluded it was meaningless without Yahweh Bashem Yoshai. So we're going to get Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 2. Okay, we're going to start at verse 2. It says, "Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he keepeth, or which he taketh, under the sun? One generation passes away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever." That's right, true. You're going to pass away, and you're going to pass on your riches, and everything that you work for isn't going to mean anything. Even if you pass it on to your children, they could blow it. They're not going to be probably as great as you. They're going to blow it, and all that money you work for is going to amount to nothing. And the earth abideth forever. Yeah, what I really get from this is that pretty much the Lord is there forever. The Lord is there forever, and he is eternal, and that's who you should put your trust in. That's just what I'm thinking about. I'm not saying that's the breakdown of the precept, but that's just what I'm thinking about. Your life is nothing but a vapor before the sight of Yahweh Bashem Yoshai. Right? Your time is going to come and go, and then it's another person's time to take over, and then what? And then you're going to fade away and be forgotten. But the earth is still going to be here. Yahweh Bashem Yoshai is still going to be there. He is eternal. He won't be forgotten. He's everlasting. Verse 5. "The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits." Now let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 11. "Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit." Yeah, because life is a bitch at the end of the day. You had to work for it, and it caused you a lot of stress, pressure. All those people that were under King Solomon too probably didn't like King Solomon. He had to probably deal with a lot of bullshit too, being a king. You had to deal with unruly servants. You had to deal with flattery, right? People not really wanting to serve you, but they're serving you anyway. That's not easy too, right? But yeah, vexation of spirit, because you still got to go out there and work, and that's exactly what Andrew Tate spoke about. He's talking about. In order for me to drive a $800,000 car, I still got to put in work. I still got to go out there and make a business, work with my hands, and sweat and toil, man. So I still gotta work, and it isn't easy, right? It isn't easy. So, and all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Yeah, striving after the wind, all is folly. All is folly. So verse 13, verse 12, "And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the man do that cometh after the king, even that which hath been already done? Then I saw the wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness." True. That fear excelleth folly, fearing Yahweh Bashem Yoshai and doing what you're told. As far as light excelleth darkness. That's right. And the light is the law, statutes, and commandments, man. The truth. And that's what you need, right? Proverbs 6:23. Right? It says the commandments are a lamp, and the law is the light. And that's all you need, man. That's gonna get you through the dark times. That's what's gonna get you through. And especially when you use the name of the Lord and you fear him. That's all you really need. Verse 14, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceive also that one event happeneth to them all. True. The fool has said in his heart that there is no power. If you don't believe in the Lord, you're in complete darkness, man. The wise man's eyes are in his head. True. Yeah. And I myself perceive also that one event happeneth to them all. That's right. Then I said in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. That's another one. So let me get another one. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Okay, so this is also falling under the category of his realization of vanity. He understands that he has to keep the commandments of Yahweh Shem El Shai and fear the Lord. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep the commandments, for this is the whole duty of a man. And when you do these things, when you fear the Lord, you keep his commandments, it's very simple. It's not complicated. It's very down to earth. And it's all about humility and enjoying the simple things in life. Because that's what happens when you fear the Most High. It keeps you grounded. That's what happens when you keep the commandments. It's very simple. That's a part of the commandments. Loving your mother and your father. Taking care of your house. Following the dietary law. Those are simple things. And that goes a long way. And that brings forth fulfillment. Okay? Not temporary pleasure. Verse 14, for the Most High shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. See? So he ends with wisdom. Anyways, that's all I got, man. I hope this was edifying. Real quick, I was just watching this and I thought about King Solomon. And that's why I brought out some precepts. So with that, I just want to give all praises, glory, and honor due unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone of GMS that I do learn this truth from. To you I say Shalom, and Shalom unto the hopeful elect. Kwame Ashala and Abba Ball.